happy to introduce Mark Herzlich, class of 2010. As everyone knows, Mark, number 94, is star linebacker on the BC football team and battled Ewing sarcoma this past year. He has been an inspiration to us all, and I'm so happy to introduce him. Please join me in welcoming Mark Herzlich.
Are we good with this and this, or should I just?
It's fine either way.
All right, cool. All right, sorry, I got too many mics going on here. How you guys doing? I'm very honored to be here, and I was asked to come and talk a little tonight, and I just found out I'm the first student speaker ever, so I'm very excited about that. But my story is kind of, it's public, but there's a lot more to it than I let out in the open, with the news and stuff like that. So, this is kind of the venue where I can share a little more. And, you guys are all my peers, and, it's nice to have people know me a little bit more for who I am than for what's just on TV. So, obviously, the news basically broke May 14th about my cancer diagnosis, but when it really became public in the national spotlight was October 3rd, when we played Florida State and game day came for the day, and that was when the flood of people contacting me and everything kind of first started. But the whole story, the process started before that for me. Back in April of this time last year, I was getting ready to play in the spring game for football, and I was having pain in my leg, and I couldn't go out. Tried to go to parties, but had to come back early because my leg was hurting too bad. I had to sleep with heat packs on my leg, just to numb the pain. And that was tough. It was really hard because I went to a bunch of doctors, didn't know really what was going on, and did x-rays of my back, thought it was nerve damage and stuff, but we couldn't figure out what it was. Even one time, I can't take good painkillers because we get tested by NCAA, so I called my dad. I was like, Dad, I can't sleep, I don't know what to do. He's like, take my credit card, go down to City Side, buy yourself some Jack Daniels or something. And he's like, numb the pain that way, maybe that'll work. So, that was kind of, it's like, what am I supposed to do? I can't figure out what's wrong. Doctors don't know, I don't know. And so after the spring game and after finals, I went back home to Philadelphia and had a whole bunch of tests planned out. I was there for a week, and I think I had 6 or 7 doctor's appointments scheduled for then. And one of them was an MRI of my leg, and the MRI came up. I got the MRI, went back home. Next day was seeing another doctor, pulled in the driveway and got a call from my orthopedic doctor and said, you need to go to Penn Oncology right now. And so, I was like, well, must be precautionary or something. So go down there, take a drive with my mom and my dad, and, we pull into the hospital. We have to wait for a while. Then we get in, and, you're sitting in a doctor's office. You're like, this is an oncology office. This is not, messing around. This isn't just a little sick or something. So they threw the MRI up on the screen, and my right leg was dark, which is normal, and my left leg was completely white. And for those of you who don't know, on an MRI, fluid shows up white, and a tumor is made up of 90% fluid. So it was white, and the doctor said, we don't know for sure if this is cancerous, but it's so big and has grown so fast that we're about 99% sure that you have a sarcoma. And at that point in my life, I was 21 years old. I was coming off the best season football of my life. I was having fun at school. Everything was going pretty well, and hear that news and have it all come crashing down is like, what do I do? What do I say? I can't turn to my mom or my dad. They don't know what it's like to experience that. My friends don't know what it's like to be told that, you might die. And it took me about 2 hours when I got home. I got home, I laid down on my bed, I had my iPod in, and, the thoughts are just like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Just flooded into my body, into my brain. And after sulking, feeling completely in the pits for that amount of time, I realized, what was I going to do? What was I going to do? Was I going to sit back and just let this beat me? Was I going to just give up because I got bad news? That's not the way that I was raised. That's not the way that I wanted to live my life. And that's not the way, I wanted my life to end. So, I decided at that moment that there was, whether it was cancer, whether it was, Florida, nothing was going to beat me at that point. Whether the doctors told me, said, this cancer can be cured if you fight it, you get through the treatments. There's about a 70% cure rate with this, which to me, I'm like, 70%, that's 30% chance of dying. That kind of sucks. But, at the same time, I was like, I can do this. Like, I can be one of those 70%. And he told me I'd never be able to play football again, too. He said, with this type of cancer, it's so big in your bone that we're going to have to take out your femur and replace it with a metal rod. And he said, sometimes they do radiation, but they don't ever usually do that on your legs or arms or stuff like that. So there I am sitting in my bed, decided that I'm going to beat this, decided that I'm going to play football again. But the odds aren't really on my side. So, I started treatments a week later. It was unexpected. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what chemo was going to really be like. Nobody in my family had cancer before. And so, I didn't know what to expect. I just, seen movies where chemo blows and you're like sitting there and like dead and, drained and throwing up everywhere. And so like the first time I went, it wasn't that bad. Like it sucked, but it wasn't that bad. So I was like, all right, cool, I can do something. So, I went and played golf after chemo, and I was like, okay, we can do this. Like we can keep pushing. So, it went along like that for the first 2 months or so. Chemo, I'd be a little tired afterwards. I'd go work out or play golf or something, and wake up the next morning and feel pretty refreshed. And then it got time where at the 2-month mark, you do another MRI and see how well the tumor is shrinking and how well the chemotherapy is working. And at that point, you have to decide, the next course of action, the surgery. When are we going to do the surgery? And got the MRI, came back, and the tumor had shrunk so much that there was a new option on the table. I could get radiation instead of the surgery, and there's not studies done on the radiation because no one really does it, so didn't know how much it would affect the cure rate, whether it'd be the same chance of survival. But for what I wanted to do, for my goal that I set, back May 12th when I got in my bed, I wanted to play football again, and I wanted to be able to live the life that I lived before. So I said, I'm doing radiation. I'm going to get radiation. It's going to knock it out. And then, go from there, see what happens. So did the radiation for 5 weeks, continued chemotherapy throughout the whole time. And, it was draining. At one point when I had first started, my friends from BC had came down and visited me for the first time, and we went to the Jersey Shore, which is a lot of the Jersey Shore is like the show, but where we were at wasn't really. But so we were at the beach. It was nice. I got a call from this guy. It's like some random number I picked up, and he goes, "Hello, is this Mark? My name is Walter Musgrove, and I just wanted I heard about your news and wanted to give you a call." And so I was like, "Okay, well, this is interesting. Let's see what he has to say." And Walter was a football player. He still, he played football, but now he's a lawyer. But he played football in Texas at a D2 school, and he had cancer in his collarbone. And he got the treatments, got radiation, and came back and played. And at that point, it was like, this is a sign. This is like someone just out of nowhere calling me and giving me hope, when I was not feeling so hot, with all my friends there, seeing me, bald and with no hair for the first time. It's, you feel a little self-conscious. And he told me something interesting that, I hadn't really thought about. He told me, find God in your life. And at that point, I grew up Christian, Presbyterian, and through football and through everything, I made excuses why not to go to church, why not to pray. I didn't really know what I was doing too well with prayer. It's whoever, if any of you started praying at some point, it's a little awkward at first. You're like talking to someone, you're like, okay, I wonder if he heard or anything. But and so he goes, be specific with your prayers. Pray for something specific. You can't just. He told me, he goes, I prayed that I wouldn't lose my hair. He didn't want to lose his hair. He prayed every day that he wouldn't lose his hair from the chemo, and he didn't lose a strand of hair. And I was like, that's incredible. I'm already bald, so I can't pray for that. But but I'm gonna pray every day that I beat this cancer and I can play football again. And that's what I started doing every morning, every night. When I woke up, went to bed, that's what I'd do. It became a routine. And, after a while, it didn't feel like I was talking to nobody. After a while, it felt like someone, somewhere, was listening. And, I found kind of my prayer, my God in my life in my own way. And I used that going forward to kind of give me support. Obviously, I received a lot of support from my family and my friends, and they were, incredible throughout the whole thing. But the one thing that kind of I could do on my own was say a prayer or two. So, that it kind of leads up until back to game day, when it became public news, it became national news, and I got a call on the Wednesday before our Florida State game. It was like, I think game day is going to come to Boston College. I was like, why? Like, what for? You got way better places to go. But they're like, we want to do a story on athletes who have been going through struggles and come out on top. And so I was like, cool, let's get game day here. Let's get a game on national TV. I thought that was pretty neat. And so that day goes along. I get the call from game day. They're coming. That night, I'm going to see a movie, and my dad calls me, and he told me that they met with the doctor, and the newest MRIs showed no cancer. And, I wasn't planning on announcing it to the world, to my teammates, to everybody on national TV, but somehow things fell in line that way, where on Saturday I was able to tell all you, the whole world, the nation, that I had done the first part of my goal. I said what I prayed for every morning. I got rid of that cancer, and that comes through the support, through the doctors, through the prayer. And after that day, as I said, the floodgates really opened, and people started contacting me and saying that they're praying for me to keep going, and they're telling me their stories, and I'm trying to help them. But a very interesting phone call that I had gotten the day before game day actually broke. was from Teddy Bruschi, who's a linebacker for the New England Patriots, or was, and he didn't have cancer, but he had a stroke, and he had a stroke and came back and played football. And when he told me, he goes, you know, things happen to people for a reason. He goes, you're a survivor now. You need to be proud of being a survivor. You need to take that and do what you will with it, but always be proud and know that you did something that many people didn't do. So, you know, I really took that to heart. And when people started to contact me, it was like, you know, I did it. I can help someone do it. I can even just, you know, put myself out there and so they can hear my story to keep fighting. One example of something that kind of happened like that, afterwards I got contacted from a family whose little 5-year-old boy named Luke. Luke had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and had been going through treatments for about a year or so. And they said they were going to the Notre Dame game. They live near there. And they wanted to see if I could meet him before the game. And, you know, this was kind of, I was like, what am I going to say to a 5-year-old who's going through chemo treatments? And I didn't really know what it was going to be like, but I agreed. And so before the game, they were standing right by our entrance, and I went over and said hello. And Luke had drawn me a picture of an elephant and a duck, but they were just come with scribbles. His mom had to tell. And I realized, I was like, this kid, he doesn't really know he's sick. You know, he doesn't feel all the pain that someone who is that much older and can understand what the whole spectrum of the disease is about. And, you know, when I looked at him and was realized, you know, he's just going through it because that's all he knows. And that, you know, it hurt because that, you know, it's sad that he has to do that, but it was also at the same time, it's like, this little kid is doing it. People can do it. You just have to have that attitude where I'm just going to do it because that's what I know. And, you know, he was an incredible story. I got a email from his mom 2 weeks ago, actually, and he has finished his chemo treatments. He is cancer-free, and he is another miracle. And, you know, that type of thing is really incredible. On the same, you know, type of thing, this other woman in Virginia contacted me about her best friend who was going through cancer and chemo treatments, and, you know, things weren't doing very well, and asked if I could say a prayer to her. And, you know, I don't respond to every email or Facebook message I get about it because, you know, there's too many, but this one kind of touched me a little bit, so I responded, and, you know, I said that I'd talk to her, and so I gave her a call. And, you know, I didn't do much. I didn't say much. I just said hello. I hope you're doing well, all that stuff. And, you know, from that point on, she found her strength in our conversation that had lasted maybe 15 seconds. And I got another email kind of on the opposite note where she had lost her fight. She wasn't able to beat the cancer. And the most special thing to me, and, you know, it's kind of weird to even think about, but she was asked to be buried in the Boston College Beat Cancer t-shirt. And when I heard that, it's like, it's not about me. It's not about whether you can help people, whether, you know, everyone is saved from it. It's just making the effort and giving someone a friend when they need a friend, or a little bit of hope when they need hope. And, you know, that's what I truly found. And with the fame, with the things that came from College Game Day, I say yes to every time I'm asked to talk whenever I can, because the more people who know that it's possible, the better. That's my job as a survivor. And it's, you it's something that I can do. I found that when junior year I was getting, messages, phone calls from people who were like, "Oh, you're great at football. Oh, you're great at this," and that was overwhelming for me. I didn't need to be different. It was, I didn't need to be special. Walk around campus, have people, look, oh, that's, he plays football. You see what he did with his eye black. He looks really scary and stuff. But I found a purpose to that pseudo fame. I found a way that I could use that to reach out and help, and that's something that I found through Walter, who had guided me towards God. That's something that I found from my family, who was there supporting me the whole entire time. And that's, something that I found from people like Luke and the girl in Virginia, where it doesn't matter what you do, it's just that you do something. And that's what I wanted to kind of relay to you guys tonight, and thank you very much for having me. Now, I wanted to field some questions. So, shoot, Mike, coming. It's coming in a second, just wait.
Hi, I'm just interested in your life plan, kind of, what's next?
Hold on, this is echoing. I guess, what's next? Right now I'm playing football again. I am participating in spring practice, not fully yet, so I won't be playing in the spring game, but I am going to continue to play football. Next semester, I'll be playing whenever we go out on the field, September 4th. And I graduated from BC in December. I kept on the same course and decided I was going to graduate early and do a master's. So now I'm doing my master's, and I don't know. What am I going to do? What I want to do is we've kind of started an organization at BC. It's a chapter of Uplifting Athletes, where a team will take a rare disease and raise money to support that. So a kid on my team, Ryan Lindsay, when he found out that I got sick, he decided we'd do a Lift for Life. And we had a Lift for Life last summer, and we raised $31,000 in 30 days. And that was just, last minute football team, just calling as many people as we could. And that kind of expanded when people across the country would say, what can we do to help? One thing, I talked to my doctor, I was like, what can people do if they want to help fight this? And they said, donations for research are like the biggest thing they can do to help. So I think pretty much every team we played this year donated money, and we have raised over $200,000 so far this year for cancer research. And so I started doing my master's in finance, and not only was it way too hard for me, but it was not really where I wanted to go. So I switched to the Woods School of Advancing Studies master's program, and I'm taking classes on how to start a nonprofit organization, and that's kind of what I would like to do going forward, start my own charity and stuff like that. Anybody else?
Hi.
Hello.
It's interesting that it sounds like it was after you had already beat the cancer that all of the messages started flooding in. Obviously, that was the most public moment, was when you were able to tell everybody that you had beat it. But do you think that, was there any thought, like, why didn't this come sooner when I was still fighting? Or would you have wanted it then, more attention?
Well, I guess, it was a little bit of both. I did get a lot of messages before when I was actually battling the cancer. A lot of cards and stuff. My living room was filled with cards, and I actually, couldn't read all of them. My mom kind of sifted through them and whatever, but it was harder for me to do anything about it at the time. I couldn't respond really to everybody. People would send me stories, and they weren't always positive stories. I don't know kind of what they were thinking. It's like, oh, I'm gonna write Mark and tell him how my best friend died of cancer. It's like, cool. Now I'm gonna go shoot myself. But no, I couldn't respond to all of them, and that was the biggest thing. That's kind of after when people from not just the Boston college community were calling and writing. Then I could kind of see the circumstance and kind of respond. Thank you.
Two questions.
Mm-hmm.
First one, any ideas on what type of nonprofit would you like to dedicate yourself to? And on getting used to talking in public about your experience, you feel like someday you might want to open a program or publish some type of work about your experience?
Yep. To answer the first one, I have a couple ideas for a nonprofit type thing. I want to focus on a lot of the kids or young adults who have cancer. Want to be kind of specific to start and then maybe expand. But one thing that really helped me going through the process was being active while I was doing treatments, and to make sure that I didn't just sit on the couch and kind of feel sick and feel gross, to go out and do stuff. And there was an organization in Tampa when I went down there for the ACC championship game, which got kids from the hospital and brought them and did activities like events. And one of the events that I went to was they all went bowling, and these are kids from 4 to 11 or something like that. And so I want to do something to get kids out of the hospital as much as they can, or to provide some sort of alternate activity from the treatments, and then hopefully expand that into not just kids. For a lot of senior citizens and adults feel like they can't do as much regardless, so they don't want to do anything. Actually, about a month ago, my grandfather got diagnosed with terminal cancer as well, and that obviously was not great for the family, but he's been able to get involved in some sort of program like that through my grandma found it, and he gets goes on walks and stuff, and it helps him a lot. So be able to do something like that. As far as publishing something, I have talked to people about writing a book, and I've started dabbling here and there, but I can't publish a book until I finish my eligibility with football, so I'm going to leave that till after the season.
Hi. I realize your phone call with Walter was kind of a pivotal moment for you in, I guess, strengthening your faith. And I was just wondering if, since then, you have kept any contact with them, or maybe just had a chat with them on how your faith has grown since then.
Yeah. I've kept in contact with Walter. I talked to him very frequently, actually, and he was kind of, I called him my little guardian angel, throughout the whole thing, because he would, out of nowhere, for some reason it seemed like every day that I wasn't doing very well or wasn't feeling very good, he'd call and he'd just be like, hey, just want to check in, see how you're doing. So, he was great when we've talked ever since, and then, I found that I could help him. He had a brother who's getting recruited for football and stuff and wanted some help with that. So I've been able to help him as well. So we have stayed in contact, yes. In the back, there's someone.
I'm just kind of curious what it was like after you were diagnosed and you went through the treatment and you were finally able to put pads and a helmet on. Like, what was that kind of moment like for you, if you can describe that?
Yeah, well, it was not very long ago. We, started spring practice a couple weeks ago, and it was great. And it's funny, I still feel like I want more because the coaches, I'm cleared by the doctors to play again, to do everything, but the coaches are still hesitant about putting me in because my flexibility is not fully back yet and strength's not fully back yet. So yeah, I'm wanting more, right now. And well, September 4th, that's the day. That's the day when I could be back.
I work with Children's Hospital in Dana-Farber Cancer. So I work with a lot of young cancer patients, and I was wondering if you had any advice for kids who may be losing motivation, who can't fight with everything they have anymore and just are getting tired of it.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. A lot of cancers are, curable, but the biggest problem is people don't finish their treatments. That's, the number one killer in cancer. And it's the loss of motivation when you're, some people have to do chemotherapy for 3 years. And so, you're after 2 years, you're like, am I going to do this forever? So it might be tough for the younger ones, but what I did, I made goals. And so after I finished my first month of chemo, that was a check mark. That was a goal that I had accomplished. After, I got through my radiation, that was another check mark. And kind of like each cycle that I had gotten through, it's like, all right, one down. And so obviously they have to understand about making goals and stuff, but that's something that helped me kind of push through and be like, I only have so much left and I can get there. Another thing for the younger kids is find something that they can do during, I'm sure they do a good job of this, but find something that they can do during chemo that they enjoy. A lot of eating's not very good during chemotherapy because everything tastes like bad words. It's not so good, and you not always want to do stuff active or thinking, because thinking it's like they call it chemo brain. You cannot think about anything. I'd be playing Boggle or Scrabble with my parents when I was doing chemo. I got 0 words, no points. So if you can find something, then that'd be good.
Hi. It's obvious that you've made remarkable transformations through all this. Have you ever thought about what life would have been like if you did not have cancer?
I do. And at one point, I was asked whether, I had learned anything from it. And at that point, I said no. I was like, if I didn't have it, I'd have been better off and would never want to go back. Obviously, if I didn't have cancer, it'd been awesome, but there were certain things that I learned throughout my process about myself that I really needed to improve on. I wasn't very patient with people. I wasn't, I wasn't as accepting as I needed to be. And so, when you spend like all your time for all summer in the hospital and, seeing people who have just problems that they can't control, like they don't want to be there. Some people don't want to be, a certain way, and they just are. That's how God made them, and that's, I learned that, and that's, I guess my appreciation for other people as people grew, and so I was very thankful about that.
I was just wondering, in terms of when you came back to BC and got back adjusted to college life, whether you felt different or disconnected, or that you maybe aged 10 years in a few months, or how your friends were in terms of supporting you.
Yeah, well, because I did my chemo throughout the summer, and I actually kept taking classes up here as well, so I did summer school. And then when I came back up to Boston in the fall, I was still doing my chemotherapy, so I would go home every other week and do my chemo. So I was kind of on campus. And it's interesting. The people who I knew really well, my really good friends, every single one of them handled it completely differently. Some would be kind of standoffish and a little quiet because they had a hard time dealing with it. Some would, be really lovey-dovey and just, how you doing? Is everything okay? And then some would just, act like everything was normal. So, it was different because you knew that people weren't kind of looking at you the same at the beginning. And then, once you're around and people see you and, you're doing fine, doing relatively fine, then it kind of felt more comfortable. And right now, actually, it's a little interesting just because I don't have the same type of schedule as a lot of my other friends do right now. I did a speaking engagement for St. Jude's Children's Hospital in Boston, and I'm going down to Florida to do a Jimmy V Fun thing at Dick Vitale's house, and went to Atlantic City to do another thing. And it's a little different than the other people, and I think that my friends are, they're proud of it. So it's I guess it's a good feeling. It's a little different, but not too bad.
My mom works in pediatric oncology, and she often talks about the effects cancer can have on a family as a whole. So I'm curious what the effect had on your family, especially since your case was so public.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting, and I'll address my immediate family and then kind of the surrounding family as well, because I found out on May 12th that I had cancer. I had to go on ESPN on May 13th and tell the country that I had cancer. So there wasn't really a whole lot of time where you're like, okay, I need to just deal with this myself. So I had to send out mass text messages to my really close friends and tell them what happened. To my family, my dad made phone calls to my family to tell them what happened, because I didn't want them to find out for the first time on the news. My family was very great. My mom was very strong around me. She cried a lot when I wasn't around. My brother was amazing through the whole thing. My brother's probably my best friend, in the world. We were so close from when we were young and up until now. And so he, I don't know how he did it, but he, at least around me, he acted like nothing was wrong. We were just normal. Everything was perfect. My dad kind of probably, took it the hardest, because he has always been very, very involved in my life and was my coach and everything, but has also been, very focused on his work as well. So when this kind of happened and my mom and brother could come to chemo with me and be there to support me, he kind of felt like, I can't be there. I can't physically be there to help. So I have to be at work. So it was tougher on him to kind of feel like he was a part of it. And, he found his way. And I've told him many times that, even though you weren't at my chemos every day, I knew that you were thinking about me and supporting me. And right now, it's nice after the fact where the cancer's gone and everything, and it turned out for the best. But after my grandfather got diagnosed a month ago with terminal cancer, it was kind of like, here we go again. And so he's not going to make it. But right now, I think that my entire family is more prepared and able to kind of give their love and support in the right type of way more quickly, which I'm very thankful for. Over here.
As you were in the national spotlight through your treatment and beyond, I can imagine that would take a lot of energy and courage on your part. So did you view that always as a positive thing, or were there some times when you wished that weren't the case, that you were kind of in the center?
There was definitely times where it was kind of overwhelming, where I had at multiple chemotherapy appointments. I had video cameras there filming the whole thing, and I'm like, it's just a little awkward, and I'm like, I'm just gonna sit here for like 6 hours. I don't know what you guys want to film or take pictures of, but you just feel free to come. I felt a little bad because they always want to interview my doctors and take pictures in doctor's appointments and stuff. And I'd have to tell them, some of the doctor's appointments they weren't good at all. Obviously, the first one was the worst, but I went to different doctors, and every time they told me that there was no chance of me playing football again, like that happened a lot. It just kind of crushed me all over again. And I'm going to kind of get off on a little bit of a tangent, but I'll come back to it. Some people ask, like, how come football was one of your main priorities? Like, that seems not even close to as important as what we were dealing with. And, what I say is, I kind of thought the same thing at the beginning, but part of being, wanting to be cancer-free is I wanted to be able to do the things that I love to do. And I had put so much time and so much effort and so much passion and love into my football that I really, really wanted to be able to do that again. And I would kind of feel a little bit empty if I didn't have that. So, that's every time they kept on telling me that, you're not going to play football again. Some doctors told me, he goes, after I got the radiation, he's like, you definitely shouldn't have done that. It's like, your leg's going to break and it's never going to heal. I'm like, well, perfect. That sucks. But, it worked out, which was good. And then, there were times that, being in the national spotlight was great, obviously, for, the support and for being able to help people. But, I got to meet a lot of cool people, do a lot of fun things as well. And, those memories are things that I'll have forever. I don't know if I wanted to be at the college football awards ceremony in Orlando, to get a Courage Award. I'd much rather gotten like best football player ever award, but I didn't get that one. But the being there was cool. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. All right, last call on questions. Anybody got one? I'll answer all the questions you want, but. All right, well, I just want to thank everybody again, for having me. Is special for me. I hope it was, you got something out of it too. So, I want to thank Campus Ministry Church of the 21st Century for allowing me to be here. So thank you.